because here's what happened. So this retired agent who was following me, I don't know if they thought they were going to get in on the reward or what. But, so he calls former director Louis Free, who's a good man, and he gets Louis to join in on the chase. Now, Louis been, what, he was director for a long time, and so he was chauffeured for a long time, right? So it's been a long time since he's probably driven, except for those Vermont roads, like I drive. And so we crossed the bridge into Vermont, and it's a long rise. And about a couple miles up on your right, there's a big conference or welcome center, right? So we're zipping up through there, and all of a sudden, construction cones narrow us down to one lane. And just at that point, I look to my left, and there's a baby peregrine falcon that came out of the nest from the ledge across the street next to the thing, okay? So I'm feeling sorry for this little guy because he wants back in that nest. Mm-hmm. And so I said to my wife, look at, I take the mile marker, and I said, I want you to call 911 and I'll tell them what to do. And I said, well, take the nearest turnaround, come back. I'll throw a coat over the little bird, and then they can come and save it because they've captive breed them there. Except the cones went on for miles. And I'm getting pissed because I'm more worried about the bird than anything. Not knowing who's behind me trying to catch up, right? Not that I cared. But just when the cones ended, I can see this coming up. So I'm going to take that turnaround, you know, where between the two interstate lanes. Mm-hmm. And just as I go to do that, some kid in this Renault Center truck was coming up between the blocked lane and my lane, blowing the cones all over the sky and highway, and nearly took us on the left side, broadside. But I swerved over, and unfortunately for Louis, he had to swerve over even further off into the woods, hit a tree, severed a femoral artery, and nearly bled to death on the spot. Now, that was not my fault. I did not put him there. He was not supposed to be there, and it was nothing that I did on purpose, okay? So, I did not know this at the time, and we're up the highway when finally, and I'm pissed now. The phone rings, and it's a dispatcher who we had just talked to from the state police. Sir, where was that bird again? And so I told her right to the 10th of a mile marker. She goes, oh my, we just had a terrible accident near that location. So I file that back here. That's strange. So we get to Burlington, where we always stop at Barnes and Nobles, and I have a tomato preachy sandwich and a white chocolate mocha. The only time I not get to eat bulletproof coffee because my wife, you know, being the scientist she is. And on the TV is newsflash, former director of the FBI nearly killed on accident on I-89. And I think, wow, that's strange. That's another coincidence. So I pick up the cell phone and I say, hey, Dan. He goes, what? I could tell something was up now. What? I just saw on the news, find out who the hell that was. Yeah, okay. Like he never got back to me, that son of a bitch. So like on about 10,000 other things I catch him on. And so that's what happened to Louis. Okay. So I get here late and I'm pissed. And so I'm a little discussion with the director here. And I said, well, we got to talk about something first. What's that? Well, that terrorist case. I had proven beyond a reasonable doubt that there were two people, Nigerian terrorists, father and son, in our area working to 4 universities and other universities by breaking into computer systems, finding the really smart students and flattering them with the secret shoppers check scam, it's called. It's where they get a hold of a high performing student at a university and say, hey, you've been selected to, it's such stupidity. You've been selected because you're so smart, get a high tune there, to be a secret shopper. And we're going to send you, I don't know, a couple $1,000. And all you have to do is deposit the check, immediately draw out, keep 500 for yourself or whatever the amount is. Mm-hmm. This is how dumb they are. And wire this money to this Dropbox in Miami, which turned around and wired it immediately to a Dropbox in Las Vegas, which was basically a way of running the money around. It was a fundraiser for the Al-Shabaab terrorists. And, but I caught them at their little game. And it's like I catch everything else. It's always one stupid, obtuse things that'll catch people. And they had possession of something they had no right of possessing, and that was a U.S. mail sorting box. And in any event, it took me a while to put it together, and that's who it was. And so I asked my friend from the agency to prove this money wasn't going to terrorists, and I was told, well, I can't do that. I said, well, you can't. Well, watch what I do, knowing that the other two agencies were also on the line. And we kept them online for about 2 hours, maybe a little bit less. And I sucked them in to allowing us enough time to get their location where they were actually pulling these internet scams out of by bouncing them off servers all over the world, or a little bit quicker than that. And that's basically how we zeroed in on their location and sent them a little message about maybe you shouldn't try to scam Scott's wife like that, or any other person like that too. Mm-hmm. Yeah. People, I guess, get put into positions where they have to resort to doing the most awful things to try to correct what they, to try to correct a wrong with another wrong. That's all only way I can put it. You know what I mean? What caught them too was their Nigeria was a French colony, okay? And they can't complete a paragraph without interjecting a French word like "lay" or something like that in one of the sentences. You know what I mean? So basically, that was one of the first keys that I got about identifying them, and then putting it together with the other information that I had from the activity that I witnessed. So in any event, after that was settled and the ID came out and the props came out, because they were monitoring the equipment, okay, and they saw what I had. It was like an oops moment for them, okay? So, see, we live a half mile from our airport, local airport that takes jet and is a jet fuel farm for the smaller, medium-sized jets, smaller jets, privates. So that white Viscount owned by the Bureau that flew into Potsdam earlier, after this little meeting that we had online, discussion, demonstration, well, they got right back into that white little Viscount, and then they flew out and came back around illegally low, okay, right next to the house, and wagged their wings, okay? So you know what I did? I stood there like this, while everybody was looking out the side of the plane at me, because that pissed me off, what they did. You make a deal with somebody, you better make sure you know who you're making a deal with, even though maybe you wanted to keep it a secret from the Boston office because of Whitey Bulger and everything. But hey, there's a lot of good people in that Boston office, trust me. And I just think it was funny. Once again, total underestimation. And, but that's all right, because maybe that's the only way I survived those years. But it doesn't make any difference. The point is that if you make a deal with someone, now get this, the day I turned in that report, okay, which was the day after St. Patrick's Day, was all written up. I was asked, what is in that book? And I said, $1 billion. They said, what? I said, there's $1 billion in that book. Oh, what are you talking about? I said, trust me, you'll find out. So that book disappeared for a month. I can only imagine who read it. I realized back then, after doing my research, that those paintings stolen from the Gardner, valued at $500,000 back in 1990, were worth over $1 billion. And they are, not including the merchandising that goes along with the returning those paintings into the Gardner Museum. They will be, definitely will be probably the most well-known museum in the world, simply because these paintings by the masters, stolen, I forget how many years it's going to be now, but way too many years, maybe 30 years now at least, get returned to the Gardner. Can you imagine the demand to see those paintings hung back where they should be? Because they were our, yours, mine, everyone's cultural gift, okay? That's where they belong, and that's where they're going. The sooner someone else gets their job done, the sooner they'll go back. So again, the connections, everything's connected. There's so many other things that I've been shown and taught, going back to the original, excuse me, I've got my little friend here. Oh. Yeah, well, this is another story. Hey, Lara, you gotta let her out, please, Mocha. This little kitten, our neighbor's sister, showed up at our door. She was maybe 5 weeks old or less. They took her away from the mother. And I knew I had to have her and rescue her. She slept on my chest every night and sucked on my neck.
Today's her first birthday.
Oh, it's her birthday, huh? She sucked on my neck, and I fed her with a baby, a little tiny doll bottle, you know. And she has imprinted on me. And we had shortly after, we got a new Aussie puppy. And it's absolutely amazing how they communicate, and how each one, the dog, the Aussie puppy, and that cat, and the other cat, who he's very friendly with, how they communicate. If one of them's outside and wants to come in, whoever's on the inside comes and gets me to let the other one in. And the other and won't go out. And then the same thing with say if the cat's in and the dog wants to come in, she'll come and find me and do that. It's just absolutely amazing. I've had such, since this happened to me, I have had such incredible experiences with not just our animals, but with wild animals. 2 or 3 winters ago, 2 winters ago it had to be, I'm on the upper garden. I have 8 gardens here. I have a greenhouse, and I have, I didn't have it fenced then, and I was playing Frisbee with my, I have a Border Collie Aussie mix. Smaller than most people. Come here, Rai. Up. This is Orion here.
Oh, how beautiful. So cute.
Yeah. In any event, so he loves to play fetch, and I'm throwing a Frisbee out. There must have been 2 foot of snow. And it's just a beautiful, sunny, cold winter day.
Mhm.
And he brings the Frisbee back up to me, get there. And he drops it before he gets to me, and he's looking behind me. And I look, and there's this huge mouse. I don't know what kind it is, but he was big. He's running around panicking, looking, for escape or something. And the mouse runs right up to me and looks up at me. And the next thing I hear is, "Where can I hide?" And I'm thinking, what is going on here? So we have a whole hedge of lilacs, and with the sun and the snow, it's like a tree well out west when you're skiing, you want to stay away from, where the snow is melted around the base of the tree. So I point to one of the clumps, and the mouse tears off and goes over and dives down that hole. And the dog looks at me, and the dog, and so what? Pick up the Frisbee and throw it again. And he comes back, and again, he drops it, and he's looking behind me. I go, now what? So I turn around, and there is, I got a picture of him too, he's gorgeous. A white weasel with a black tip on his tail. And he's running around looking for something, but he's smelling almost where this other guy was running before. And so the next thing I know, he runs right up to my feet, and he looks up at me, and this guy's behind me looking at, what's going on. And so the next thing I hear is, "Where'd he go?" I'm thinking, what? Where'd he go? And all I did was point where that mouse went. That weasel took off like a rocket. Next thing I know, the mouse comes shooting out of the side where the dog had trampled down some snow, and that weasel hit him behind the neck, and that was it for the mouse. Except Orion runs down there, and he gets right close to him. So the weasel's got the mouse, and so he drops him, and he backs off to the hedge. So I told Orion to stop, and he minds very well, Kohler method training. And I go down, and I pick up the mouse, and I walk over to the weasel, and I just tossed it to him, and he caught it. And I swear, he said, "Thank you," and off he went. Now, that's not the first thing that's happened since all this has been happening to me, but here's the reason why. Because that's the way it was meant to be. Okay, we weren't supposed to have such adversarial effect with other animals and life on Earth.
I agree.
And what it is it was whatever they injected into the monatomic gold and the other element of that. I knew it was monatomic gold, but I did, and there had to be something different, because I have been communicating with people who have been taking what they say is monatomic gold, which I'd stay away from because of the heavy metals in it. But they weren't experiencing what I was experiencing, and I couldn't figure out why until I found it in the book. What it has to do with is the source, which is feminine, just like it's described in the full version of the Book of the Alien Races. They all, when they're asked about God or whatever, most of them have always said, think in the terms of the goddess Diana in Greek mythology. Okay. Now, I have always thought that the source, or what we call God, had to be feminine, because all life comes from the feminine part of plants, animals, humans, right? All life comes from the female. So why would some guy swinging a dick sitting up in the clouds be in charge? Right? It is not that way, not even close.
That makes sense.
As I have found out from a tremendous amount of research. Now, here's another little problem. Osho defines it exactly in his book, The Book of Wisdom by Osho, right here. Okay. What he describes in here is about the next enlightened. In other words, one visited 3 times. he said, people don't think in terms of what we know from prophecy and from ancient writings and everything. You have to think about in modern terms, modern day life, modern day knowledge, you know, those things. So he described that well. Then the second regression was with Patty Entrant in Baltimore area. She's a Tibetan, I believe. Another number 3, fantastic woman.
Mhm.
Before we even met, she had talked to one of the other enlighteneds through a regression. And he explained to her, he described to her me right to a T. Okay, the fact, the way I am, the fact that I shop, I do all the shopping for the most part. And I cook for everyone, which I do. I love to cook. I just love to cook. I love to grow, especially what I cook. I mean, I use a lot of fresh herbs and things. And she knew it when I walked into her place and we met. And so when my wife had her regression, I went for a long walk in the neighborhood. And as I encounter wherever I go, where they live, in other words, in the tropics, I've never met any, but wherever I go in my environments up here, I have always, I have cardinals talking to me, okay? And so I mentioned that to her when I came back, and I said, I couldn't believe, she goes, they see you, your light. Well, I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now, because now with the developing, I can see my aura. I have a rainbow aura, okay? I can see it. And I tell you who else sees it. I knew this one guy was strange. I never liked the looks of him. I never liked the looks, the way he acted, the way he is with his businesses and the whole 9 yards. When I finally met him, it was the day after that September visit. And I was headed home from the store. And I met him on a big, long, sweeping corner in a car, a gray, they call it, piece of shit car. And when he saw me, he saw my aura. And he shape-shifted into the passenger seat. The car went off the road, nearly hit a building head on, then went into the ditch, hopped down the ditch for a while, had 6 cars behind me, all stopped. Everybody got out to watch this spectacle. But I don't think anyone else saw what I saw when he saw me, because I know what I saw. You can never forget something like that, okay? He was a reptilian, okay? I know the story behind it now and everything, and so does the government now, okay? Because I can't wait till I meet another one and to see what his reaction is, because back then I couldn't see my aura, so which means my aura has gotten even stronger through this development, okay? But they're real, and that's what our problem is the reptilian race. Now, I can tell you right now that this guy named Van Kasken, okay, about this alien world order, it's the truth, man. That guy, David Icke, yeah, it's the truth.
I like
Okay?
David Icke.
Oh, me too. You know why? Because he's got a little clue too. Yeah, that's and then of course there's another book about, if you want to learn about extraterrestrial species, okay? This is really good. I kind of try to get my hands on documents that we gotten from other agencies. I kind of, you have to be careful what you're getting. More and more good information is coming out, but no one, until I got a hold of Del Bigtree and proved to him why. No one has been asking why. That's always been the problem.
Mhm.
People witness this misbehavior or behavior not deemed appropriate for society. Okay, but they don't ask why. What caused this to happen? I've always taken the approach in my work is to try to understand what happened, okay, before I label or accuse someone of something. Because if you can understand what happened, you can understand why it happened.
Mhm.
And you can see the motivation and you can see the pathway. And that's why I've never been to court yet. I have solved some of the most incredible cases that people will never know about, and some that they will find out about. Okay. So I got a hold of Dell and I said, I'm a little worried, Dell, because things are heating up and I'm worried about your safety because, you know, they've killed other people before, you know, and they have. There's no
Mhm.
question about it.
Mhm.
So, so that's why you'll see the interference, but they're not going to win. I can tell you that right now. No matter what, they're not going to win. Now, Dolores Cannon's book, The Three Waves of Volunteers in the New Earth, okay?
Yeah.
That, from what I've been able to try to ascertain and deal with, because I'm a very tortured soul with what I love when it comes to the earth and people and animals and everything, my greenhouse and my plant, you know what I mean? I mean, that's my salvation. But I also can understand why there might have to be a reset, a do-over. Now, let's get back to what I was telling you about the immortal spiritual beings, because I know Chris expressed it in his way. With me in 214 in October, I wasn't sleeping very much. When I say some nights not at all, I mean not at all. And it had to do with what they injected into me. But so my wife had her office in our bedroom. It was a huge bedroom. And she'd be sitting there doing her work, and I'd be on the bed just trying to meditate and deal with things, you know what I mean? To try to help understand what's going on. And then all of a sudden I'd be gone, either physically or my body would be there, but I'd be gone, what we call ethereally. I'd be brought up on a ship, and it would be like conversation didn't end from the last time I was with them or whatever, but there'd be a conversation going on, and then all of a sudden, if I was brought up ethereally, I would realize that, hey, I can't see any appendage. I can't see any part of my body. As soon as that thing was in my mind, the bright light would hit me and boom, I'd be back in my body, and my wife would either sense or feel something and turn and say, where'd you go? And as I would try to express myself to her, the next thing you know, either I was taking up physically the entire body right through the roofs of the house, and with this light technology, I assume it's materialization, dematerialization, okay? Then I'd be back up, continuing the conversation. And then as soon as I realized I could see my fingers or whatever, boom, the light would hit me and I would be back in my body. And when you put your whole body, your bed kind of bounces a little bit, and Laura would turn around and she would say, where did you go this time? And boom, it'd be like my body would be lifeless and I'd be back up on the ship spiritually. Well, the third time they brought me up spiritually, which means they brought me up twice physically during this short time period, is when I finally realized what they were trying to show me and demonstrate. And that is that, yes, we are immortal spiritual beings. We're all a spark of the source. So therefore comes the indifference thing when it comes to other alien species. Let's say if there were other alien species which we consider to be negative or harmful. What if it was the fact that they just knew the truth about life and about, so what? He's going to die anyways, or so what? It's not like he's going to be really dead. It's just this human experience at this time, right?
Mhm.
So that's where the indifference comes in. If they knew this, what difference did it make if they had an agenda? Okay. Well, with us, we don't like that agenda, that's for sure. But what I'm trying to say is that they proved to me without a reasonable doubt that we are immortal spiritual beings. And like Chris said in his song, I'm 42 on the Viva La Vida, Death and All Its Friends. Not only is he, and the other song, When I Ruled the World, that's one of his past lives. Cemeteries of London, that's when you can see interdimensionally. Okay, people aren't dead. Your friends, your family who you've lost, your loved ones, whatever, they're not dead. It's just a change of state.
Mhm.
So that was a relieving fact, seeing that I have 4 children and 3 beautiful grandchildren. Because when this first started happening to me, and I realized the first night they showed me the end of the world there, that was not a pleasant experience for father and grandfather to go through. But I know what I was shown, unequivocally what I was shown. And so then they went about the way they do things, which I really have come to appreciate, by showing me other facts in history or timelines and difference, which will occur or can occur or whatever. So it kind of took the sting out of it. Okay, in that sense. I got to tell you, in 2014, every Christmas, okay, we go to my son's in Maynard, Mass. And after Christmas, and we spend New Year's with them. It's my daughter-in-law's birthday. And so in 2014, we went down. Now this stuff is happening quite prevalent with us. And I was being very vocal to everyone about what was going on. And of course, it was uncomfortable for my son to hear this from his father. But so we're down there, and I believe it was a Thursday or a Friday night. I'd have to check the calendar because we log everything. My son comes into where I'm in another room and I'm working on the computer, and he said, "Dad, you're not going to believe this." He said, "Eva, who is my granddaughter, my oldest, just asked me that." She said, "Can Pepper, will you ask Pepper," that's what they call me, Pepper,
Oh.
to bring me for a walk, but just only Pepper and I can go before I go to bed tonight." He laughed. He goes, "Why'd you ask that?" She goes, "Just what I want." So he laughed, and he comes to me and he said, he tells me, right? And so we laughed. I said, "Of course." So 7 o'clock. Okay, this is like, it's still the end of December. We get dressed and her and I go for our little walk, and we're halfway down their driveway, and I look up and there they are. What can I say? It's kind of hard to miss. And so I said, "Eva, look up." And she looks up and she goes, "Oh, I see it, Pepper. It's beautiful." Well, the next thing I know, we're both up on the ship, but they took us up ethereally. And so they've got her in another room. God help them, whatever. She must have set their asses straight if you knew this little girl. And so I'm watching us go for a walk through the neighborhood. I'm thinking, wow, this is different. And so when our bodies get back to the base of their driveway, the next thing I know, boom, both of us are back in our bodies. And she takes off like a rocket, going to the house to tell everyone about this experience. which got me in trouble. But I'm standing there like an idiot trying to figure things out. And the next thing I know, this huge red orb, which I've seen before, I got a schooling that night about what that means, comes and sits right on the house. Well, that's kind of hard to miss, trust me. So finally I say, okay, that's good, that's nice. And I go in the house and I get accosted by my son for filling my daughter's head with all this shit about aliens. And I was like, wow, wait a minute. I didn't say a word to her, pal. I said, listen to her. Those are her words. You can ask her. I didn't say a word to her, Jay. Well, he didn't like it. Didn't make any difference to him. What kid would want to know, hey, the aliens are visiting my father? So, so everybody goes to bed later on and things calm down. And as usual, we stay up and watch a West Coast Bruins hockey game, you know, if they're playing on the West Coast. So the game's over with and we go to bed. And when I go down to our bedroom, I turn the light on and wake my wife up. And so I get in bed, get undressed, get in bed. As soon as I shut the lights off, boom, they came to us in our bedroom. And on the wall, which my wife witnessed, is something that they showed me when I was like 10 years old, all alone in my grandmother's house, my father's mom's house, because I was going down to stay overnight from my uncle and I to go into our camp, family camp, to go fishing the next morning. But my grandma was a midwife for her area of the village. So she gets called out, but she says, don't worry, Bobby will be home in a few minutes, because he got off at midnight. But something happened where some guy had to be late, so he had to stay. So here I am, 10 years old, in this house I've never stayed overnight in before, all alone upstairs in this bedroom. Terrified. Always, there's a reason, always afraid of the dark, and you can find it in that Atlantis book here. So dark cold water too, that's it, and bad drivers. So two of my biggest pet peeves. We both sit up in bed and we're watching this on the wall. Okay, now what I saw when I was 10 years old, I thought I had a nightmare again, was the door frame. There was no door in this bedroom, but the door frame, all along the door frame, on the outside and the top outside of the door frame, there were leprechauns with their little hats and their swords and their skirts and their hands on their hips. And there's these other little creatures on the inside, all the way around across the bottom of the top and all the way down the left side. Okay, and so all of a sudden, the leprechauns are sword fighting these little guys. And at the same exact time, they all stab the other guys who fall down dead, whether they're dead or not. Maybe they're just pretending. And then the leprechauns cheer. And I'm thinking, wow, that's strange. And so my uncle comes home finally, and I tell him about the nightmare I had, and he laughed at me. He goes, yeah, that is crazy. Well, guess what? That's exactly what they showed my wife and I that night. And then they said, you have been protected all your life. Think about it. So are your children and your grandchildren. Now that was a relief for me, because I can remember seeing that red orb, being in situations where all I can say is the few times that I can remember seeing it on the road, I thought it was like the big red pink moon, except that, man, it was a little too close. But when you're traveling that fast in a Saab 900 turbo and you're trying to get somewhere, you don't really pay attention to all that things, but you do pay attention to the fact that after you see that red orb, the next thing you realize consciously is that you're hundreds of miles away and you don't remember going through all those other places where you very intimately know. Okay? So basically, the explanation was you've been protected all your life. Now think about it. I've been in crashes that I should have never survived. I've been in situations God only knows how I escaped. But the point is, I've been shot too, where I should have been dead. Okay?
Mhm.
So that's what they meant about being protected. It's all about the DNA. That was the first time down there. Now, obviously, the government knew and was watching, because you can't do these things without getting their attention.
Mhm.
So a few years ago, we get invited to go down, which was odd, on Labor Day weekend, because my son was invited to a party and he was told to bring us to the party. I don't want to give out the location of this party, but let's put it this way. It couldn't have been any closer to FEMA 1's, Area 1's headquarters. Okay, couldn't have been any closer than that. And there were a lot of people at this party, that very small group of people, well, maybe connected, government connected, very like-minded people. And they wanted to talk to me. Now, the director of Region 1 was there also. He's from my university. And he thought he was a famous baseball player or whatever. But I knew who he was. Okay? I knew he was CIA. So here's these other guys, a whole bunch of just the guys that wanted to meet with me. You have these chairs in a horseshoe fashion, and one sitting in the center and the like the end of the horseshoe, bottom. And they wanted to talk to me about something. So I said, sure. And I made it perfectly clear to my friend that mind your own business. When I get a certain way, if I say something a certain way, I think people understand what I'm saying to them. So he certainly did. So I sit down with this group of gentlemen, and they held some very, very, very important positions when it comes to national defense. And what they want their leader, their spokesman for the group, asked me, compartmentalize and only tell us what we need to know, but we know that you know something more, and we would like to know what that is. So I told them what that is. And my friend was listening, and I could see from the expressions on his face he wasn't too happy, but that didn't mean shit to me. So I basically just tell them what I know. And you know what they told me? They said, thank you, sir. This finally makes sense to us. Okay? So we talked a little bit about other things, but basically it was mainly our backgrounds and knowledge. And so it's time to go. And so I walked up to my friend, and I got right in his face, and I stuck my finger in his face. And I said, you know, it's a fourth quarter moon tonight, and they're coming. And he said to me, I know, we'll be watching. And I laughed. What are you going to do? I said, they can stop time and fold space. He didn't say a word to me, and I walked away. So we go home, and later in the evening, another West Coast hockey game for Jason and I to watch. Everyone else is in the bed. And all of a sudden, Jace mentions to me, Dad, how come that helicopter keeps on circling the neighborhood? I said, oh yeah, I hear it. I said, I'm in the hockey game, right? So he said, you can get into the communications, can't you? I said, yeah. So I punched up a code and I got into the communications. And we're listening to their bullshit story about them looking for a lady who lived 3 towns away, who threatened suicide by cop, and she's driving a gray car. Wow. In the trade, we call that a fuck story, to be honest with you. You have to excuse the way I talk, but according to the aliens, we're pretty stupid to worry about words when we have starving children, right?
Mhm.
So we go outside and I'm watching this helicopter. Both of us are watching this helicopter circle and I'm listening to them talk. So I said to my son, I said, you see the helicopter? He goes, yeah. I said, well, look at the undercarriage. Do you see a FLIR device or a spotlight? He goes, no. I said, well, then how do you think they're looking for a lady in a gray car committed suicide by cops 3 towns away, and they're circling your house for the last half hour? And he looked at me and he kind of understood. I said, I told those idiots that they'd be coming tonight, and they came. Of course, what was he going to say? Because I'm going to tell you what happened exactly a year later from that Christmas time, you know, when we had a little incident about my daughter and my granddaughter and I being visited,
Mhm.
and me putting that shit in my granddaughter's head. Well, again, New Year's Eve is my daughter-in-law's birthday, and we always have Chinese food, and we go pick it up at this really, really good restaurant a town away. So we're sitting there waiting for our order at the bar, having a drink. And I said to Jace, I said, Jace, I said, you know, I got to talk to you about what happened last year. And he goes, no, you don't, Dad. I know. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, after that happened, he said, my grandson, my clone, Jackson, started coming into the room at night, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, waking them up, telling them about the little men that he fights with at night. Right. So what do? They buy those infrared cameras. And sure as shit, the kids are being visited. So I guess he had to eat some crow and admit to that his father wasn't right. And so now he realizes it's not true. And then he realizes, why was Dad asked to go to this party and talk to these men and everything?
Mhm.
And then why did this helicopter show up that night, you know? Well, that's because they did come. So we laughed about it and everything, went in, finished watching the game and went to bed. As soon as I turn the light on, Laura pops up in the bed. She goes, they came and they gave me they came. I said, yeah, I know. I said, didn't you hear the helicopter, for Christ's sake? Idiots were circling the house like they were going to do something. And she goes, and they gave me a message to give to you. I said, yeah, okay, so what's that? She goes, they told me to tell you that they were going to come and take me there again. Now we both know what that means. Okay. She gets taken to what we would call the medical section of the Akashic records.
Mhm.
All you have to do is Google Scholar Lara, Lara Varden, and take a look at some of her work. I mean, she is more published than a lot of the professors at the university. Okay. She has an insatiable quest for knowledge when it comes to health in our bodies and science. It's absolutely incredible. She's on committees all over the world with important organizations, and she's one of the hardest working individuals that I've ever known in my life. And she's a National Science Foundation fellow. Now, by law in the United States, the funding for the National Science Foundation comes from the CIA. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, which tells me I know they know. Okay? She was the only graduate student funded at Clarkson University for NSF grant. She wrote the grant entirely by herself. So I know they know the relationship. Okay. Now get this. Since that incident, they have taken me and they have shown me already what she and someone else that we know are going to discover. And as I told my friends from a different group, the good group, let's call them, not only did they realize, they already knew that when the messengers come and visit someone like they did, that we're given a gift. Okay, mine's technical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hers has to do with health. Now, here's what they showed me. So they bring me up in the ship again. I mean, this is old hat by now. And I am greeted by the oldest living thing I have ever seen in my life. Okay. He makes that great tortoise from the Galapagos look like a kindergartner. Okay. And so he's got a hood on, beautiful clothing. Hood, like a one-piece thing, hood, robe, whatever. But man, he's old. And so he takes my hand and we walk into this room and he goes behind this desk. Everything seemed to be like a stainless steel or silver or something. And we're talking. And then the next thing I know, a man and a woman walk in and they're kind of like garbed up, like health, surgical laboratory garbed up.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them's carrying a tray and there's a syringe and a vial in that tray. They go over to the old guy. He takes his sleeve out, his arm off his sleeve. They rub his arm. They drop this vial, okay, syringe. They give him a shot. Now, before my eyes, this guy reverse aged like you would not believe. Okay, I mean,
human.
Incredible how he changed into a young man. And I say young man, late 20s, early 30s, but that's what it was. Kind of blown away. The next thing I know, they take me and they show me where they discover with what they use to reverse age this gentleman. Okay. And then later on the week, they lead me to discover in ancient literature that is nothing more than translation of clay tablets, where this this guy was an Anunnaki. He was the one, I believe, who his half brother and him never got along, whatever, and they got in a pissing contest where I guess their idea of how you win the crown is you get naked and you wrestle, and whoever beats up the other guy wrestles, the other guy wins. And I think you've heard that story in the Anunnaki tales, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's such a, and so this guy, he must have been a real sicko because they all are. He bites off his half brother's dick and swallows it. I don't know what that's all about, but that's what these things say. You can't. I'm just talking what's written in history, what's written in stone. Let's put it this way. And so then he goes underground, same place where these two went to discover this thing, and he gets this thing that has to be kept underground, and it's plant-based. Okay. and he steals it and he takes off and he goes to Mars. And eventually that's where he dies from. Apparently I don't know. Apparently you can't bite off your half brother's dick and swallow it and survive, because that's what killed him, according to the, okay, which would make sense to me. I don't even know why anyone would go there, but that's where I discovered the verification of what they showed me. They always do this. And if I don't get it the second time, they give me something the third time, because the way I'm trained, no, coincidences don't exist, let alone three. Okay. So that's what they showed me there. And that's what her destiny is. And that's what they know. So my discussions there last month were about the gifts, about going to the stars by folding space, and by the 1,000 golden years. So whatever will be. I'm just relaying the messages, what I have been shown. I have done nothing else but that. A lot of people can't accept it. They don't want to believe it. They don't like the fact that, especially family members, that you're being visited and they're not, or just the general public. I mean, it's kind of hard to understand, especially, I just wish everyone could experience this. I wish everyone could see their own UFOs and meet aliens and realize that when you're with them, you have nothing but an overwhelming feeling of love. That's all that I have ever felt when I've been with them. And it really is kind of sad in a way, because the emotional feeling and the well-being feeling that you have when you're in their presence is so much greater than, for the most part, your existence here on Earth with fellow humans. It's and that's disheartening for me that this can't be universally shared, but there's obviously a reason for it.
Yeah.
There's something I've done so much reading and research about the council and about ordering all the aliens off Earth and things like that. And it could be true. I haven't run into another shape-shifting reptilian, that's for sure. I'd love to see another one, see if he does the same thing. I have my suspicion of who some of them are, to be honest with you. But whether that is, the truth or not about them being ordered off Earth, I guess, I have to accept that simply because for what I have been going through and what have I experienced, that how could I deny someone else's experience? Now, I've heard some people say some pretty strange things, which made me question it, but it doesn't make me discount the fact that if these things were happening to me, and not just me, but my wife and other family members, they obviously were not the only ones. There are many of us that are experiencing things. Many of us don't understand totally yet what we're experiencing because we probably couldn't handle it. But I think we're being led into the direction that is both best suited for each individual, how they're going to come into this time when alien life is just going to be like an everyday thing to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could be. I think that a lot more people are seeing like UFOs and ships, but I do think a lot less people are having like contact experiences, like face-to-face contact experiences. that seems to have been a lot more popular, or a lot more of a popular occurrence around like maybe 70s, or it just seems to get less and less that people have like full on face-to-face experiences.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll give you another band, Gangs of Youths. I believe they're maybe out of Australia. Okay. Go Further Into Lightness, I believe is the album. Check it out.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't heard their music or experienced it, it's absolutely amazing. Just like Arcade Fire stuff has got a tremendous amount. Go Further Into Lightness is the name of the album, by Gang of Youths. But like on the album, number 5 going into number 6. Number 5, La Imaginaire. Okay, it's a violin, it's string, a little bit of percussion, a little bit of synthesizer music. It's instrumental. Then it goes into the song called Do Not Let Your Spirit Wane. Now, I didn't discover these first. My son sent it to me. He said, Dad, you got to hear this song. And he said to me, isn't it sad when you first hear it without reading the lyrics and understanding the music? You would think that it's a really sad song. But then when you can see it clearly, it's not a sad song. It's a message about not letting your spirit wane, regardless of what this guy sings about, this reoccurring nightmare he has, that something happens in a car accident to his female partner and his child. Okay, but it's just a dream, and he keeps on waking up for this dream to remind himself, don't worry about it, don't live your life that way. You can't think about life in these terms and not live life fully. Okay. So then that's number 5 and 6. Now, and then Go Further Into Lightness is number 7. Number 8, Achilles Come Down. 9, Perseverance. Then number 10 is La Symbiotic. Another great instrumental, even better instrumental. It just gets into your soul. And then the song that it blends right into is Let Me Down Easy. Again, reading the lyrics. How many people read the lyrics and understand what that message is?
Mm-hmm.
Now, from what I have been told, this non-interference thing is a rule that the Anunnakis violated, okay, by genetically engineering us. And boy, their mistakes, their half of the gene certainly show up. Mm-hmm. But the thing with music and the way that they introduce these things is they don't do it, they haven't done it directly, they're doing it indirectly to try to, basically, that it's living a life in service to others. Now that can be misunderstood, because that by living a life in service to others is that everyone would be taken care of. There would be no problems that you would have to face by yourself. You would always have help in eating and love and everything. You know what I'm saying? Is that the purpose of life is not to accumulate as much wealth as you can, mm-hmm. right? It's not to have as much, have sex with as many people as you can. Or the point is that you're here to learn. You're here to learn and discover about your spirit. You're here to grow. You're not here to have 10 yachts and 15 houses when your employees have to be on welfare to eat, like Walmart employees, right? Things like that. See, that's the problem. That's the problem, is that we have this other side of humanity that is so far off the path that it makes me wonder. And they've led so many other people to follow them, to worship them as false gods, because, wow, that's a famous, beautiful movie star, or that's a great singer, or that's, because not all singers are messengers, or that person like Bill Gates, look at he's a billionaire, oh my God. Now, if there's any antichrist in this world, it's that little bastard. because as far as I'm concerned, he should be put through one of those, what do they call it, that movie Fargo, North Dakota there, that movie Fargo, wood chippers there. You ever see that movie?
No.
That's beautiful. It's about human nature, about Steve Buscemi.
You've given me a lot of music to listen to, books to read, and films to watch.